Ma'am, we have to tell you that the investigation into this missing persons case may have to be put on hold for now.
Emma Case heard this icy statement from the police. She felt as if the entire world was crumbling beneath her feet. Her twin daughters, Freya and Sophia, had been missing for 6 weeks, and the police investigation had reached a dead end. Just when Emma was on the verge of falling into the abyss of despair, a series of things that followed were like a strange rift torn open in the darkness, completely reversing the whole situation. Hey everyone, welcome to Worldly Whispers. Let's get started. 6 weeks had passed since Emma Key's twin daughters, Freya and Sophia, vanished without a trace. The once vibrant mother was now a shadow of her former self, consumed by worry and a relentless search for her missing children. The police investigation had hit a dead end. Emma had just left the station after a heated discussion with Detective Mayakuta. A lead had come in suggesting that the girls might be in New York. However, the detective was cautious. The substantial reward on the missing posters had attracted numerous false claims, and she didn't want to waste resources on a potentially fruitless pursuit. Emma, on the other hand, was desperate. She argued that they couldn't afford to ignore any lead, especially when it came to the safety of her daughters. Detective Kuda assured her that they would look into it, but emphasized the need for a methodical approach. Despite the setback at the police station, Emma refused to give up. She dedicated herself to the search, spending hours driving around the city. She visited bus stations, approaching tired travelers with the missing person flyers in hand, her eyes filled with hope and pleading. Subway entrances were another stop, where she tried to catch the attention of the bustling commuters. Restaurants and malls were also on her list. She carefully replaced old and faded posters with new ones, making sure that Freya and Sophia's smiling faces were prominently displayed. As the afternoon wore on, exhaustion began to take its toll on Emma. It was around 3 p.m., and she decided to take a much-needed coffee break. She pulled into the parking lot of a nearby KFC. Before entering, she took a moment to hang her last few posters on the wall outside. Looking at the photos of her daughters, a wave of sadness washed over her. She remembered the day they had chosen those blue Hello Kitty dresses, their eyes sparkling with joy. Now, those dresses were part of a haunting memory. Emma reached for her phone, hoping for a new lead. But her inbox was filled with nothing but false hopes, trolls, and even some threatening messages. She sighed and was about to put the phone away when she noticed a homeless woman huddled near the entrance. Emma's heart went out to her. She reached in her wallet and pulled out a few dollar bills. As she approached the woman looked up at the posters. "Are you searching for them?" the homeless woman asked, her voice rough but clear. Emma's heart skipped a beat. "Yes," she replied, her voice cautious. "I'm Emma, their mother." "Why do you ask?" The woman, who introduced herself as Maggie, said, "I've seen them. Right here in this KFC. About a month ago, I think. They were wearing those blue Hello Kitty dresses. I remember because they were so cute, and I was standing in line to buy some food." Emma's hands started to tremble. "Did you see who they were with?" Maggie shook her head. "I'm sorry, I don't recall that. There were a lot of people here that day. But I do remember seeing them go in the bathroom. I don't remember seeing them come out, though. I was focused on my food, and it was crowded." Emma thanked Maggie quickly, pressing the money in her hand, and then rushed into the KFC. She headed straight for the restrooms. First, she searched the women's restroom, checking each stall carefully. Her heart was pounding in her chest, and her hopes were high, but she found nothing. After a moment of hesitation, she entered the men's restroom when she was sure no one was around. As she was looking under the last stall, the door opened, and a janitor walked in. He looked at her in surprise. "Ma'am, this is the men's room," he said. Emma blushed. "I'm so sorry. I thought I lost something in here earlier." She quickly made her way out. Feeling defeated, Emma went back to the women's restroom. As she was about to leave, she noticed a glint of something behind the trash bin. She pushed the bin aside and reached down. Her fingers closed around a pair of glasses. The brown, red plastic frames were exactly like the ones Freya wore. She washed the dust off the glasses at the sink, and there, etched into the temple, was Freya Keyes. Emma couldn't believe her eyes. This was the first real evidence she had found in 6 long weeks. She immediately asked the janitor if he had seen two girls in blue Hello Kitty dresses about a month ago. He said he didn't remember. She then went to the counter and asked the cashier and other staff, but they all shook their heads. The manager, Kenny Brown, came out when he heard the commotion. Emma asked him if she could see the security footage from a month ago. Kenny refused, saying they needed police authorization. Emma called Detective Kuda, who promised to come to the KFC as soon as possible. Kenny agreed to prepare the footage once he spoke with the detective. Emma waited in Kenny's office, her heart filled with a mix of hope and anxiety. She finally had a lead, and the security footage might just hold the key to finding her daughters. Now, all she could do was wait for the detective to arrive and see what the footage would reveal. Emma waited impatiently in Kenny's office, her anxiety growing with each passing minute. The discovery of Freya's glasses had ignited a spark of hope, but now, all her anticipation was centered around the security footage that could potentially unlock the mystery of her daughter's disappearance. Finally, Detective Maya Kuda arrived, her demeanor focused and determined. Kenny quickly set up the computer to play the security recordings from 6 weeks ago. The three of them crowded around the screen, their eyes fixed intently on the monitor. For what felt like an eternity, they watched as customer after customer entered and exited the KFC. Emma's heart sank with each passing moment, fearing that this lead would also end in disappointment. But then, Detective Kuda suddenly pointed at the screen. "Look, there, by the back entrance," she exclaimed. Emma's breath caught in her throat. There were Freya and Sophia, their matching blue Hello Kitty dresses unmistakable even on the grainy footage. They were being led by a tall man in a hoodie, his face hidden from view. "Oh my God," Emma whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "It's them." As they watched, the man guided the girls directly to the restroom, bypassing the counter. Emma noticed something odd. "They don't seem scared," she said, her brow furrowed in confusion. "It's like they know him." Detective Kuda nodded. "Emma, does the way this man walks look familiar to you? There's a distinctiveness to his gait." Emma studied the figure on the screen. The man had a slight limp, his steps heavy. She racked her brain, but couldn't recall anyone with such a walk. "I'm not sure," she replied. "I can't think of anyone specific." The detective made a note in her pad. "We'll have our analysts run this through our system. Sometimes, a person's gait can be as unique as a fingerprint. Despite their efforts, the camera angle made it difficult to see more. The man's face remained concealed, and the restroom area was mostly out of frame. After reviewing the footage multiple times, Detective Kuda leaned back with a sigh. "This is a solid lead, Emma. We'll need to take this back to the station for further analysis." Emma agreed, her mind still reeling from seeing her daughters. "What about Freya's glasses? Can you use them for evidence?" "Absolutely," Detective Kuda said, holding out an evidence bag. "We'll run tests to see if we can find any DNA or fingerprints other than Freya's." Emma placed the glasses in the bag, her heart heavy. It felt as if she was parting with a piece of her daughter. As Detective Kuda requested a copy of the footage from Kenny, Emma asked if she could have one too. Kenny hesitated, then, with the detective's approval, copied the files onto Emma's USB drive. Just as they were about to leave, Emma's phone buzzed. It was a text from her husband, Daniel, reminding her about family game night. Emma closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. The thought of facing Daniel's family after such an intense day was daunting, but she knew she couldn't let them down. "I'll be there," she texted back, her resolve strengthening. Emma glanced at her watch. It was 6:20 p.m. She was running late. She ordered food from the KFC counter, then remembered Maggie, the homeless woman who had provided the crucial lead. She found Maggie dozing near the entrance and offered her a meal as a token of gratitude. Emma learned that Maggie's name was Maggie Laguna and that she could usually be found around the area or near the farmer's market. "Maggie, when I find my daughters, I'll come back and tell you," Emma promised. Maggie's eyes filled with tears, and she wished Emma luck. Emma drove home in heavy traffic, her mind constantly returning to the USB drive in her purse. She was eager to review the footage again, searching for any overlooked clues. When she finally arrived home, the sounds of laughter and chatter from inside the house greeted her. She entered to find Daniel and his brothers engrossed in a board game, while Laura and Daniel's sister, in Law were in the kitchen. The kids were playing video games. "I'm home," Emma called out, trying to sound cheerful. Daniel looked up, smiling. "Hey, honey, how was your day?" Emma took a deep breath. "Something happened today. Detective Kuda and I found new evidence." Daniel's expression changed immediately. He excused himself from the game and led Emma upstairs to their bedroom. Once inside, Emma recounted the day's events, from meeting Maggie to finding Freya's glasses and seeing the security footage. As she spoke, Daniel listened intently, his eyes growing wider with each detail. When she finished, he pulled her into a tight embrace. "This is huge, Emma," he said. "We're one step closer to finding the girls." Just then, there was a knock on the door. Laura entered, looking concerned. "Is everything okay?" she asked. Emma and Daniel exchanged a look. Then, Daniel told his mother about the new evidence. Laura's eyes filled with hope and relief. "Thank God," she said. "We'll do whatever it takes to bring the girls home." As they talked, Emma couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for her family's support. Despite the challenges ahead, she knew that they were all in this together. And with this new lead, she was more determined than ever to find Freya and Sophia and bring them home safely. However, little did they know that the revelations of the day were just the beginning. The road to finding the girls would be filled with unexpected twists and turns, and the truth they were about to uncover would shatter their world in ways they never imagined. In the privacy of their bedroom, Emma and Daniel continued to discuss the newfound evidence. Daniel's face was a mask of concentration as he processed the information. "This is the most promising lead we've had so far," he said, his voice a mix of hope and determination. "But who could that man be? And why do the girls seem so at ease with him?" Emma shook her head, her eyes filled with worry. "I don't know, Daniel, but I can't shake the feeling that we're missing something important." As she spoke, her mind drifted back to the security footage, replaying the man's distinctive gait over and over again. Just then, Emma's phone rang. It was Detective Kuda. "Emma," the detective said, her voice tense. "We've run the footage through our system, but we couldn't identify the man from his gait. There are too many people with similar walks in our database, and his face was too obscured for facial recognition." Emma's heart sank. "So what does this mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Detective Kuda sighed. "It means we're back to square one, but we're not giving up. We're going to canvass the area around the KFC, talk to more people, and see if anyone remembers seeing anything suspicious around the time the girls were there." After hanging up, Emma relayed the conversation to Daniel. He wrapped his arms around her, offering comfort. "We can't lose hope, Emma. This is still a big step forward. The police know where the girls were last seen, and they're not going to stop until they find them." As they prepared to rejoin the family downstairs, Emma's mind was still racing. She couldn't shake the feeling that the key to finding her daughters was right in front of her, but she just couldn't see it. Downstairs, the family game night was still in full swing. The sounds of laughter and chatter filled the air, a stark contrast to the heaviness in Emma's heart. Daniel's older brother, Dyson, approached them with a friendly smile. "Hey, you two, what's been going on? You disappeared for a while." Emma forced a smile. "Just some family stuff. Nothing to worry about." As she spoke, she noticed something odd about Dyson's gait. He had a slight limp, similar to the man in the security footage. Her heart skipped a beat, and she exchanged a quick glance with Daniel, who seemed to have noticed it too. Dyson caught their look. "What's wrong?" he asked, his brow furrowed in concern. "Nothing," Emma said quickly, trying to sound casual. "Just tired, I guess." But as Dyson walked away, her mind was racing. Could it be a coincidence? Or was there a connection between Dyson and the man who had taken her daughters? Later that evening, as the family gathered in the living room for dessert, Emma found herself watching Dyson closely. She noticed the way he interacted with the children, the way he laughed and joked. He had always been so good with Freya and Sophia, showering them with attention and gifts. But now, in light of the new evidence, his behavior seemed different. Daniel must have sensed her unease. He leaned over and whispered, "What are you thinking?" Emma hesitated. "I don't know, Daniel. There's something about Dyson that doesn't feel right. His limp. It's so similar to the man in the video." Daniel frowned. "I know what you mean, but Dyson? He's family. He loves the girls. There's no way he could be involved in this." Emma nodded, but she couldn't shake the feeling of suspicion. "I hope you're right, Daniel. But we can't ignore this. We need to find out more. After the guests left, Emma and Daniel sat on the couch, their minds still on the events of the day. I'm going to look at the footage again, Emma said, reaching for a laptop. Maybe I missed something. For hours, Emma pored over the security footage, studying every frame, every movement. She compared Dyson's gait to that of the man in the video, and the similarities were undeniable. Her heart sank as the suspicion grew stronger. Just then, Daniel came into the room. He saw the look on Emma's face and knew she had found something. "What is it, Emma?" he asked, his voice filled with dread. Emma took a deep breath. "Daniel, I think Dyson might be the one who took the girls. His gait, it's exactly like the man in the video. And when I mentioned a KFC and the girls to him earlier, he seemed off." Daniel sat down next to her, his face pale. "No, Emma, this can't be true. Dyson would never do something like that. He's our family." Emma placed a hand on his arm. "I know it's hard to believe, Daniel, but we can't ignore the evidence. We need to talk to him, confront him." Daniel nodded, his eyes filled with pain. "You're right, but what if we're wrong? This could destroy our family." Emma sighed. "I know, but we have to know the truth. For Freya and Sophia." The next morning, Emma and Daniel decided to pay Dyson a visit. As they drove to his house, the tension in the car was palpable. Emma's heart was pounding in her chest, and she felt sick to her stomach. She prayed that she was wrong, that there was a simple explanation for everything. When they arrived at Dyson's house, he was in the driveway, working on his car. He looked up as they approached, a surprised look on his face. "Emma, Daniel, what are you doing here?" he asked. Emma took a deep breath. "Dyson, we need to talk to you. It's about Freya and Sophia." Dyson's expression changed. "What about them?" he asked, his voice suddenly guarded. Emma pulled out her phone and showed him the security footage. "Do you recognize this man?" she asked. Dyson's eyes widened as he looked at the video. I don't know," he stammered. "It's hard to tell with his face covered." Emma's heart sank. "Dyson, we know it's you. Your gait, it's exactly the same. And we need to know why you took our girls." Dyson's face paled. "I didn't take them," he said, his voice rising. "I would never hurt Freya and Sophia." But Emma and Daniel were not convinced. "Then why are you acting so guilty?" Daniel asked, his voice filled with anger. Dyson looked away, his eyes filled with tears. "I can't tell you," he said. "It's not what you think." Just then, they heard a noise from inside the house. Emma's heart leapt into her throat. "What was that?" she asked. Dyson's face turned ashen. "Nothing," he said quickly. "Just the TV." But Emma didn't believe him. She pushed past Dyson and headed toward the house. "We're going to find out the truth, Dyson," she said, "whether you like it or not." As they entered the house, Emma's heart was pounding. She didn't know what they would find, but she was determined to get to the bottom of this. The mystery was about to be solved, but the truth they were about to uncover would be more shocking than they could have ever imagined. With her heart pounding in her chest, Emma pushed open the door to Dyson's house. The air inside was thick with tension, and the silence that greeted them was almost deafening. Daniel followed closely behind her, his face a mask of determination. As they stepped further into the living room, Emma's eyes darted around, searching for any sign of her daughters. Every corner of the room seemed to hold a potential clue, yet there was no sign of Freya and Sophia. Dyson trailed behind them, his steps hesitant, his eyes filled with a mix of fear and resignation. "Where are they, Dyson?" Emma demanded, her voice trembling with a combination of anger and desperation. "Tell us right now." Dyson took a deep breath, his hands shaking. I didn't take them. Not in the way you think," he stammered. "Please, just let me explain." Emma and Daniel exchanged a skeptical look, but motioned for him to continue. Dyson walked over to the couch and sat down heavily, his head in his hands. "A few weeks ago," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, "I was at a bar. I got talking to this guy. He seemed nice enough at first, but as the night went on, I realized he was in some kind of trouble. He owed money to some dangerous people." Emma's eyes widened in disbelief. "What does this have to do with our daughters?" she interrupted. Dyson looked up, his eyes filled with remorse. He knew about Freya and Sophia. He had seen them around town with you guys. He said that if I didn't help him, he would hurt them. He showed me pictures of them, pictures I knew he couldn't have taken legally. I was terrified. Daniel's fists clenched. "So, You decided to help him? How could you put our daughters in danger like that?" Dyson shook his head vehemently. "I thought I was protecting them. He said he just needed me to bring them to a certain place, and then he would leave them alone. He promised they wouldn't be harmed." Emma felt a wave of nausea wash over her. "So, you led them to the KFC. And then what?" Dyson's shoulders slumped. "I was supposed to wait outside. He said he had a job for the girls. I thought it was just some kind of errand. But when he took them into the bathroom and didn't come out for a long time, I got scared. I tried to go in, but he had locked the door from the inside. When he finally came out, the girls were gone." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes. "You should have called the police right away. Instead, you kept this a secret." Dyson hung his head in shame. "I was so scared. He had threatened to hurt not only the girls, but also our entire family if I said anything. I didn't know what to do." Just then, there was a knock at the door. Dyson's eyes widened in horror. "Oh no, it can't be him." Emma and Daniel exchanged a look of alarm. Daniel motioned for Emma to stay back and walked towards the door. As he opened it, Detective Kuda stood there, her expression serious. "Mr. Keys, Mrs. Keys," she said, nodding at them. "We've been doing some more digging. We found a connection between the man in the footage and a known criminal named Jack Thompson. He has a history of child-related crimes." Emma's heart skipped a beat. Dyson was just telling us about a man he met at a bar. He said his name was Jack. Detective Kuda's eyes narrowed as she looked at Dyson. "Is that so? Mr. Keys, you should have come forward with this information sooner. We could have been looking for this Jack Thompson all this time." Dyson looked at the floor, his body shaking. "I was afraid. He threatened my family." Detective Kuda sighed. "We need to get all the details from you. Every single thing you remember about this man, the conversations you had, everything. This could be the break we've been waiting for." As Dyson began to recount every detail of his encounter with Jack Thompson, Emma and Daniel listened intently. For the first time in weeks, there was a glimmer of hope. They were finally getting closer to the truth, and with any luck, they would soon be reunited with their precious daughters. The mystery that had haunted them for so long was finally starting to unravel, and they were determined to see it through to the end. As Dyson finished his story, Detective Kuda immediately sprang into action. She radioed for backup and began coordinating a search for Jack Thompson. Emma and Daniel were left in a state of high-strung anticipation, their minds racing with thoughts of their daughters. "Emma, Daniel," Detective Kuda said, her voice calm yet determined. "We've got a lot of work to do, but this is the best lead we've had. We'll find Jack Thompson, and we'll bring Freya and Sophia home." Emma nodded, tears of hope streaming down her face. "Thank you, Detective. Please just find them." Over the next few hours, the police worked tirelessly. They tracked down every piece of information related to Jack Thompson, from his known associates to his past addresses. Meanwhile, Emma and Daniel waited at Dyson's house, their nerves frayed. Suddenly, Detective Kuda's phone rang. She answered it quickly, her face a mask of concentration. "Yes, I understand. Keep me updated." She turned to Emma and Daniel, a glimmer of excitement in her eyes. "We've located Jack Thompson. He's in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. We're moving in now." Emma and Daniel jumped to their feet. "We're coming with you," Daniel said firmly. Detective Kuda hesitated. "It could be dangerous." Emma's eyes blazed with determination. "We don't care. Those are our daughters. We need to be there." Detective Kuda nodded. "All right, but you have to stay behind the officers at all times." The drive to the warehouse was tense. Emma's hands were clasped tightly in her lap, her knuckles white. Daniel kept a steady hand on the wheel, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. When they arrived at the warehouse, a team of police officers was already in position. Detective Kuda led Emma and Daniel to a safe area behind a police cruiser. "Stay here," she instructed. "We'll bring the girls out as soon as we can." Emma and Daniel watched as the officers surrounded the warehouse. They heard shouts and the sound of doors being kicked in. Each passing second felt like an eternity. Finally, after what seemed like hours, they saw movement at the entrance of the warehouse. Detective Kuda emerged, followed by two officers, and between them were Freya and Sophia. Emma let out a choked sob. "My babies," she cried, running toward them. Freya and Sophia's faces lit up when they saw their parents. "Mommy, Daddy," they shouted, running towards them as fast as their little legs could carry them. Emma dropped to her knees and gathered her daughters into her arms, hugging them tightly. Daniel joined in, wrapping his arms around all of them. The family wept with joy, their tears a mixture of relief and happiness. Freya and Sophia were checked by paramedics to ensure they were unharmed. Other than being a bit hungry and tired, they were in good condition. As they sat in the back of the ambulance, Emma and Daniel listened as their daughters recounted their ordeal. Jack Thompson had taken them to the warehouse, where they had been kept for the past few weeks. He had been using them to run errands for his criminal activities, but he had not physically harmed them. Emma and Daniel were filled with a mix of anger and relief. Anger at what their daughters had been through, and relief that they were finally safe. Dyson, who had also accompanied them to the warehouse, stood nearby, his eyes filled with guilt. He walked over to Emma and Daniel, his head bowed. "I'm so sorry," he said. "I never meant for this to happen. I was so stupid." Emma looked at him, her eyes still filled with tears. "You made a terrible mistake, Dyson. But right now, all that matters is that the girls are safe." Daniel nodded. "We'll get through this. Together." Detective Kudo walked over to them. "Jack Thompson has been arrested. He'll be charged with kidnapping and child endangerment. Thanks to Dyson's cooperation, we were able to find him." Emma and Daniel thanked Detective Kudo profusely. "You've given us our family back," Emma said. As the sun began to set, Emma, Daniel, Freya, and Sophia got into their car and drove home. The road ahead was still long, and there would be many days of healing and recovery. But for now, they were together, and that was all that mattered. The nightmare was finally over, and they were ready to start a new chapter in their lives.
If this story touched you, show your support by liking and subscribing. Your encouragement helps us keep sharing memorable stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.